Bang Si-hyuk, the man who turned a ragtag boy band into a global money printing machine called BTS. The man who built Hybe Corporation, once valued at more than $10 billion, into the Disney of K-pop. And now, that same man may end up trading his designer suits for a prison uniform, possibly for life. Because in September 2025, South Korean authorities stormed Hybe's offices in Seoul with a single mission: investigate allegations of tax evasion, corporate fraud, and illicit offshore deals. The government is calling it one of the largest corporate investigations in K-pop history. And if the allegations stick, Bang Si-hyuk, the self-styled K-pop king, could be staring down a lifetime behind bars. So, how did the genius who gave us Dynamite end up facing the kind of scandal that could dynamite his entire empire? Imagine a man sitting in a tiny studio in Seoul in the early 2000s. Not much money, not much backing. Just a stubborn belief that music could be engineered into a global product. His name? Bang Si-hyuk, affectionately called Hitman Bang. He was no ordinary producer. He had worked under JYP Entertainment, crafting hits for others, but he wanted more. He wanted to build his own empire. And so, in 2005, he founded a small company, Big Hit Entertainment. At the time, the K-pop landscape was already dominated by the big three, SM, YG, and JYP Entertainment. These companies controlled everything: the idols, the TV shows, the distribution. Big Hit, it was a nobody, a tiny office in Gangnam with almost no staff and a dream that looked ridiculous to the giants. But then came 7 boys, 7 trainees who didn't fit the typical mold. They weren't glamorous like SM idols. They weren't polished like JYP. They were rough, awkward, and almost considered rejects in the industry. Their group name, Bangtan Sonyeondan, BTS. Nobody believed in them. Their debut single in 2013 barely cracked the charts. Critics mocked them as budget idols, but Bang had a plan. Unlike other companies, which micromanaged every move of their stars, Big Hit allowed BTS to tell their own stories. Songs about youth, depression, and societal pressure, themes K-pop usually ignored. Slowly, they built an underground fan base. And then, the internet happened. By 2016, BTS had gone global. YouTube, Twitter, and fan armies propelled them to superstardom. They weren't just idols anymore, they were a movement. By 2018, BTS contributed an estimated $4.65 billion annually to South Korea's economy. Yes, one boy band was worth as much as the country's airline industry. Bang Si-hyuk had transformed his small company into a monster. In 2020, Big Hit Entertainment went public on the Korean Stock Exchange. It raised over $820 million in its IPO, making Bang a billionaire overnight. The stock soared. For a while, Bang Si-hyuk was celebrated as the Steve Jobs of K-pop. But behind the glitter, the glamour, and the music videos with 500 million views, something darker was brewing. Because if there's one thing more powerful than K-pop, it's money. And money attracts problems. At its peak, BTS wasn't just a music group, it was an economy. From 2019 to 2021, BTS generated 87% of Hybe's revenue. That's right, almost the entire company rested on the shoulders of 7 young men singing and dancing on stage. In 2021, Hybe's total revenue hit $1.2 billion. Their operating profit was over $190 million. BTS concerts alone generated hundreds of millions, with single tours bringing in $170 to $200 million globally. Merchandising, fan memberships, and even branded dolls contributed another $100 million annually. But here's the catch. Despite this massive empire, individual BTS members reportedly earned only a fraction of the wealth. Each member was given shares worth around $20 million each when Hybe went public, but their annual salaries and payouts were surprisingly modest compared to Western artists. For example, BTS members were rumored to earn around $8 to $10 million per year, including endorsement deals. Compare that with American superstars like Taylor Swift, who can make more than $100 million in a single year. The imbalance raised eyebrows. Where was all the money going? The answer lay in Hybe's structure. Bang Si-hyuk had built not just a label, but a conglomerate. Hybe acquired Ithaca Holdings in the US, home to Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande, for $1 billion. It expanded into NFTs, gaming, webtoons, and even real estate. But every expansion needed cash, and every move seemed to depend on one golden goose, BTS. And then came the storm. In 2023, BTS announced a hiatus due to mandatory military service. Almost instantly, Hybe's stock lost a third of its value. Investors panicked. Without BTS, Hybe looked like a hollow shell. The pressure was immense, and under immense pressure, companies do desperate things. By 2025, South Korea's tax authorities were circling. Reports emerged that Hybe may have underreported billions in earnings, shifted profits through shell companies, and dodged taxes on overseas revenue. Investigators raided Hybe's headquarters in Seoul. They weren't just looking for mistakes, they were looking for fraud. And all eyes turned to Bang Si-hyuk. The man who had once been hailed as a genius producer was now being whispered about in the same breath as corporate criminals. So what exactly is Bang Si-hyuk accused of? At the core, it's tax fraud and accounting manipulation. Korean prosecutors allege that Hybe moved overseas profits in ways designed to avoid paying South Korea's corporate tax. Money made from BTS world tours, merchandise, and fan memberships may have been funneled through offshore subsidiaries. If proven, this wouldn't just be a slap on the wrist. In South Korea, large-scale tax evasion can carry sentences of up to life in prison. Yes, the man who gave the world BTS could potentially die behind bars. The implications are massive. For one, South Korea has always had a complicated relationship with its chaebol-like entertainment companies. On one hand, they bring global prestige and billions in soft power. On the other, they are notorious for secrecy, exploitation, and shady finances. Bang Si-hyuk's fall would echo scandals like the Samsung corruption cases or the downfall of Daewoo. For BTS fans, the nightmare is personal. Imagine realizing the band that carried your teenage years may have been trapped in contracts designed to enrich one man and a handful of executives. Already, whispers of unfair artist fees and overwork have resurfaced. Some industry insiders estimate that Hybe kept 60 to 70% of BTS's concert earnings, leaving the actual performers with a sliver of the profits. And it's not just about money. If Bang is convicted, Hybe's entire empire could collapse. Remember, Hybe still holds the contracts of not just BTS, but also other rising acts like TXT, 17, New Jeans, and Western artists under the Ithaca label. Investors are terrified that without Bang at the helm, the company could implode. The irony is brutal. The same man who engineered BTS's rise by giving them creative freedom is now accused of enslaving their financial freedom. The man who turned a small studio into a billion-dollar empire may lose everything because of greed. So, is this the end? Not yet. Bang Si-hyuk is fighting back. His lawyers claim the raids are politically motivated, a way for regulators to set an example. Hybe has promised full cooperation. But history in South Korea shows that when prosecutors move against billionaires, they usually find something. Think about it. Samsung's Lee Jae-yong was sentenced for bribery. Lotta Group's chairman went to jail. Even ex-presidents have been imprisoned. In this environment, Bang Si-hyuk isn't untouchable. And yet, even if Hybe collapses, the legacy of BTS remains. 7 boys who defied the industry, broke records, and united fans across continents. But legacies are fragile. When the king at the top falls, it drags everything down with it. Bang Si-hyuk once said in an interview, "Music is business, but business is also art." Today, that line feels tragic, because when business overshadows the art, the music dies. Now comes the $1,000,000, or should I say $1,000,000,000 question. What happens to BTS? Remember, BTS isn't just a band. They are an economic engine. Their 2022 Las Vegas residency alone generated over $250 million in tourism and ticket revenue. But behind the music lies a brutal truth. Idols are assets, and assets belong to the company. If Hybe collapses, BTS's empire could be dragged into bankruptcy courts. Even worse, if prosecutors prove that artist revenues were part of the fraud, BTS members themselves could be entangled as beneficiaries, despite not being directly involved. Fans online are already panicking. One side demands justice. The other fears the collapse of their idols' careers. And Bang Si-hyuk, the man who once bragged that BTS was bulletproof against the industry, he may discover that bullets don't hurt as much as subpoenas. This scandal is reshaping the entire K-pop industry. Rivals like SM and JYP are quietly celebrating Hybe's humiliation, while regulators sharpen their knives to audit everyone. If the golden boy of K-pop could cheat, who else is cooking the books? The irony is delicious. Hybe, the company that once made South Korea proud, may now become the cautionary tale of unchecked greed. And so we're left with a haunting question. Is this the end of BTS as we know it? Will their founder, the so-called hitman Bang, trade his billion-dollar empire for a prison sentence longer than his discography? Or will Hybe, like all great entertainment acts, find a way to stage a comeback, even from behind bars? One thing is certain. In the world of K-pop, where perfection is manufactured and smiles are scripted, reality always finds a way to crash the stage. And maybe, just maybe, the real show is only beginning.